Hi guys, I'm back, and this is a small job that I've been meaning to do for a while, is to put a Diff Breather Kit on the car. So it comes stock with some breathers, but they don't go up very high on the chassis. So this is a basic kit that I've got, and it just lifts up the breathers to the top, as high as you want really, but if you put them in the top of the engine bay, you shouldn't really get water up that high. So it's a pretty, it's a generic kit that I've got. So let's have a look and see what's in it. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. So this was just off eBay. They don't really give you specific instructions. There's some general instructions. Even though this was supposed to be a Colorado kit, I think all that means is it's got 4, so here's the mounting plate, it's got 4 for the rear diff, front diff, transmission and the gearbox. So the filters, little filters mounted there, that mounts up in the engine bay, and you run some of this piping. What you can do, the fittings they give you can either go straight onto, so you can replace the OEM fittings, or the OEM breathers have just a rubber hose coming out of them, so you can use these barbs and just connect onto the OEM hose, and then onto these to go into the push fit hose. So that's the easiest way to do it. Anyway, I'm going to have a look and see what's required. I'd probably prefer to use these because I'd hate to damage the OEM connections, trying to get them out if they're a bit rusted, whatever. So I might just go with the barbs. It does seem a lot easier and a bit safer. You also get a bit of protective split hose to go over this to stop it rubbing on anything, a few cable ties, what have you. So here we go. So the first thing you've got to do is mount this in the engine bay. I've basically gone and drilled the 2 pilot holes, so I'm going to put all this together. So put these in here, and then the filter goes on top. So basically that goes in there. Filter just screws in on top there, bang. And then, so I'll have all these ready to go, and this is just a push fit hose. So you push it in here, and there's little teeth in there, which you may or may not know. You can just see the little teeth, and they basically grab the hose and stop it pulling out. So there's nothing to really do up on the actual hose fitting. It's just a push in, as long as you cut this square so it goes in straight, and that's a pretty good seal. So I'll put all this together, then I'll actually mount this in the engine bay. So that's what it looks like when it's put together. So the filters for the breathers are protected. This is going to mount up against the firewall, and obviously it's all they're protected from getting damaged, and the hoses just push up in there. Alright, so I'll go mount this and start looking at the pipework. So that's where I've mounted the filters in the engine bay, and basically I guess the pipework can come up through there or down from this side. Just depends where they're going to run from. So it's as high as I could get it. Good a spot as any. So this is the rear diff, and the breather for this is here, and it disappears up over the fuel tank. So you can see that disappears up over there above the fuel tank, which is going to be very hard to get to. So you can see the rear diff hose continues up there, and it actually goes up there along with your filler hoses for your tank. So there's only a couple of clips. If you just pull it, it'll pop off the clips there, but I'm just going to leave that section, and I'm actually just going to cut it I don't know, just above the tank probably. Just above the tank, and put the barb in there. Okay, basically I've got, this is where I've cut the existing breather hose above the fuel tank. Here's my new line, there's the end of it, which I've run, just followed the chassis rail along there, follow the fuel lines to the engine bay, which I'll cable tie when I'm finished. So basically I've got the barb, and I've already connected that section. Barb will push onto the old line, and this is for the rear diff under the passenger side, the chassis rail. You can see I've just cable tied this in with all of the wiring looms, and up into the over the fuel filter, and then up into the engine bay. Now the front diff is on the passenger side here, behind the wheel. You can see I've actually popped it out, but anyway, it's normally going up into the engine bay, and it actually is connected under your battery tray, just under here. It's very hard to see, but if you just pull it, it pops out. And so there it is there. So I'm just going to put the barb in under here somewhere and run it back into the engine bay. So that's what a finished join looks like. This one is for the front diff, and I'll just feed that slack back up into the engine bay, cable tie it in behind the suspension, and it will come out up here. So this one's for the rear diff, it just comes down there. This one will be for the front diff. Okay, this is difficult to see, but we're on the passenger side, and this is the rear of the transmission. So you can just see here, this one is the breather, and it's on, you can see the fitting there. So that runs up on top of the transmission and runs along there. And you probably won't be able to see it from here, but if I get my arm up in here, there it is there, that one. So that runs up into the engine bay, and it's right behind the engine. So I'm going to probably just cut it somewhere here and then do the join. Okay, for the transfer case, I managed to cut this hose. Cut it up there, as you can see, put the join, and then I've got my piece coming up into the engine bay, and I've just cable tied it onto this hose here, just so it doesn't flap around. This is the hardest one to get to. It's on top of the gearbox. To find the breather hose on the gearbox, if you follow, this is the drainer, follow it up here, and just above here there's a T-piece. One goes into the gearbox and one is the actual breather hose. So what I've had to do, it's a very short piece that goes into the gearbox. That's it there. It's just on a barb. Sorry about the focus. So I've just cut the other end. So now I will put my piece of hose into this end, and this has to push back onto the barb on the gearbox. Okay, so that's the finished result. Finally got them all in, connected up. The loom just goes down through there. So it wasn't too big a job. The gearbox was a pain in the ass just from where it was. But anyway, probably took a couple of hours once I worked out what everything was and where it had to go. Pretty easy. Give it a go.